What's up YouTube? Welcome back on another video. Today we're working on this 2000 Honda Accord. We're going to be doing the valve cover gasket on this. It used to be very dirty over here. We just got done cleaning it so it doesn't get any dirt or anything under the cover for the engine. And we're going to dive right into it. To replace the valve cover gasket, it's the rubber gasket that sits between the valve cover right here and the cylinder head, which is the darker aluminum casting, or the aluminum casting rather than the painted surface up here. And basically what it does, it seals the oil inside of the crankcase, in this case the valve cover, and it makes sure that no dirt gets inside as well. So it's a dual action with like most gaskets. We're gonna start by taking off these rubber spark plug wire holders. They just pop right off, followed by taking off the spark plug wires. Pull that right off. Set these off to the side. Next thing to do, these are all 10mm bolts. There's one right here, one right there. The back side you have 1, 2, and 3. You're gonna remove all of those. Take the PCV off of it. And mind you, I just got done driving the car. I'm draining the oil for something else, but you don't necessarily have to drain the oil for this. And there's another clamp right here. You can use some pliers, or sometimes that just wiggles right off. We're gonna take that off. Comes right off. That just wiggles right there. So we've got the 5 bolts to start taking loose. I'll be using my Makita impact driver. This comes right off. Zap them off. Haven't charged it in a couple weeks, so it's a bit weak, but broke those loose. We're gonna go ahead and pull these all the way up. In this case, that one just came out completely. That one's up. And you want to make sure that they stay in order, because if I'm not mistaken, the back ones are longer than the front. So you're done with that. You're going to want to come over on this side, make sure the wiring is out of the way. Oh, and just pry it right up. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. You have to use a flathead or something, but that one came right up. Get a little rag because it's a bit hot. Just lift this. I'm gonna set the camera down 1 second so I can lift this with 2 hands. Valve cover is off. As you can see, the valve train is exposed. Here's the valve cover. You can tell from the back right here, I was leaking on a lot of oil from one of the grommets. Luckily, we got the Felbro kit that comes with all new grommets, as well as the valve cover gasket. And this valve cover gasket seems to be pretty old and brittle. It's almost like a hard plastic, and it should be like a soft rubber. Let's see. Yeah. So we're gonna do away with this. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and get some brake cleaner or brake parts cleaner or carburetor cleaner, whatever you have handy. Most of it is almost the same. And we're going to go ahead and at least get the main oil off the inside. That way we don't have oil dripping when we put it back onto the engine. Then after you're done with that, you're going to want to clean inside of these seams where the actual valve cover gasket sits. And we're going to clean that with brake cleaner. That way it's nice and fresh degreased. There's also these spark plug tube covers that are also very brittle and old. I'm gonna get a pick and pull those out. Let me show you on this end what we're gonna do. All of this surface right here is where the gasket sits along to the other side. We're gonna make sure that that's nice and clean. We're gonna clean all that in the back. And we are going to be using the brake cleaner right here to make sure there's no grease. There's a few places that you want to put some Ultra Gray. Either Ultra Gray is my favorite, as well as Honda Bond. It's going to be right on the pinches of the gasket. So right here, there's a hard 90 degree for the gasket. I'm going to put a little dab right there, and I'll show you how it looks before I put the gasket on. Same as on the back, a little dab right there. On the other side, 2 more places. Right here and right here. That right there is the cam cap, so it's on the corner of each cam cap. Okay, so let's get cleaning and I'll show you what it looks like right before we put it on. Okay, so the outside of the seal is this rubber, like it's really supposed to be springy, unlike the one that was over here that was really caked up and burnt. Then on the outside, there's a metal lip. So what you're gonna wanna do is put a flathead, tap it in with a hammer, and then you're gonna bend the middle ring out, and then the rest of the seal comes out. Then with the new one, you're gonna make sure that this is degreased before you do it, but the new one just sits right in, and that gets pressed in with your hand, even pressure everywhere. But we're gonna do the rest of them and then degrease all of the inside. Bolts that are for the valve cover, there's two pieces, a metal piece on top, which is big enough to slip over the bottom. Then you have a rubber piece right here, which we're gonna get off by using a 90-degree pick. Just slip underneath. Get the pick in, you're just gonna work around it. You can either pull it off or break the rubber piece just like that. And then the metal washer comes off, and I'll show you how to put the new grommet right here that came in the kit. I'm just gonna slip it right here. There's a few threads exposed, as you can see right here. Now the method that I found online, which seems to work, I'm just gonna thread it in without the valve cover on to the cylinder head. And he did it with a ratchet, but I'm just gonna be using a very slow trigger finger on the impact driver. And right there. Now reverse. Now what that does right there, it evenly applies the pressure on the bottom, and now the grommet is in place. You can have it right there. Make sure that this is degreased when you go to put the bolts back in. I'm gonna go ahead and do everything else. We've already degreased the surface right here. Just gonna put a few dabs where I mentioned earlier on the cam cap corners. Okay, now we've got the valve cover gasket set inside of the valve cover, as well as the spark plug grommet tube seal things. Make sure that it's all the way in. Come over here, we've got in those pinches some RTV, the ultra gray, in all four corners, and in the back as well. Let me hand this off to you. We're gonna make sure orientation is correct. This goes to the timing belt cover right over here. Just gonna flip this over. What I like to do is place my fingers inside of the spark plug holes. So right over here, and hold it from the top. Or grab it like that. Drop this into place. Excuse me. Okay, so we've got the valve cover in place. Every bolt is lined up and hand threaded to start with. I'm just gonna start to draw it in, just barely. We're not gonna tighten it. We're just getting it to seat down. That way the RTV can meet with the gasket. And we're gonna get this to keep on going down now by hand with a ratchet. I'll link the torque spec for this, although I have never used torque specs on valve covers. Just gotta make sure that it's snug, same as oil pans. There is also a torque sequence for the valve cover, which is what I like to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, or something similar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Want to make even pressure along the whole valve cover. Now we're gonna bring the spark plug wires back over, and once I put this down, the camera down, I'll be able to do it with 2 hands. But just like before, we want to line up all the wires and place them in and put the clips back on. Now that the spark plug wires are back in place, I'm gonna go ahead and, in our case, fill it with oil since we drained it, but if you didn't, you just put this top back on. Make sure it's nice and snug by your hand. Let the sealant dry for, I believe 24 hours is the full cure time. Some people drive right off the lot like this. I like to keep it at least overnight, and you should be good to go. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and check back for more Accord, Honda, Civic, Integra, and other car-related videos.